Welcome to the Gentleman Ultras pay-per-view. I'm Richard Hall, and as always we're going to just have a quick run through the Italian papers just to see not only about the transfer rumours that have been quite heavy in today's papers, but also about where the updates are on the continuation of Italian football. So without further ado, we'll start. Now, interestingly today, it was Tutto Sport that had probably the biggest explanation about what's going to happen in Italian football overall. They say that the Serie A, the FIGC, have had a summit and saying that the tournament now will start on June the 13th or June the 20th, and this will play through 1 month to August the 20th, and there will also be what they call playoffs or play-outs to maybe decide things if there is another spike in the virus. So it is almost a plan B of how they're going to do that. So that's where Serie A looks. Serie B here as well is also said to be back to doing exactly the same as the top flight, even though it may start just slightly afterwards. So the second division looks as though it will resume. It says here that Benevento especially have pushed for this and are very satisfied. Well, I'm not surprised really, are you? Serie G. Now this one's stalled since February 21st, and this is why it gets a bit more contentious, because the FIGC have called on Lega Pro to get back on the field just as Serie A has. This has caused a bit more opposition, because it's saying here that a lot of people are against this in the Lega Pro because they can't put the same measures in place. For instance, whether that's how people are going to distance, how players are going to be checked. They've not got the money or the facilities to do that. So does that mean that they should call it the league a halt there? The debate's out, but they have been called on to finish. Now this is interesting because when you look at the women's game and you look at Serie D, if you would, they've said the fixtures cannot continue. They can't do that. It's a definitive stop, and amateur football as well, just for those reasons to be mentioned. So the contentious effort there, issue there is Serie C. So thank you Tutto Sport for that. A very comprehensive view of how that's going to be and how we might be seeing Italian football over the coming months during the summer. But we are looking at this moment in time to be concluded by August the 20th. So if that's the case, and especially in Serie A, there will be some movements. Obviously they've got to look at what they're going to do with the transfer window. There is talk here in a Gazzetta dello Sport saying that there will be talks of extending contracts for this situation. Obviously there would normally be a lot of movement of players between this time, so these extensions would go out to the end of August, which would give players a bit more financial security, especially, well, that matters a lot more in the lower half of Serie A, Serie B, Serie C. So just a couple of transfer rumours to finish off with, really. I think that after Dries Mertens signed his contract for Napoli, Inter were quite put aback by that, but have gone all out, it says here, going in for Cavani. An interesting one if they can bring the Uruguayan striker to San Siro, because they would, whilst Dries Mertens was going to be seen as more of a substitute for Lukaku and Martinez, it seems that Cavani would potentially play as a 3. Interesting that would see how that would work under Conte, especially because they're looking at the fact of Esposito potentially going on loan to Brescia. That's interesting because Brescia and Sandro Tognoli, who's very much wanted by Juventus and Inter. Again, we said it last time, it looks as though Inter are going all out for him, and that swap deal with Esposito going on loan in the other way could be possible. That looks as though it would happen potentially more towards the end of the season though. It does say here as well that both Juve and Inter are trying to buy Italian. Federico Chiesa, Fiorentina, much wanted by both teams, is also being fought over there. But again, here in Tutto Sport, which is quite interesting, it does say that Chiesa looks potentially a little closer to Inter. But we've seen that before, and Juventus, obviously with their financial might, can always come and take a player. So another transfer rumour here was all about Roma. Roma have got a quite interesting mention here, obviously in the Corriere dello Sport. This surrounds Jack Bonaventura of Milan. They said that he has now said yes to go to Rome and play for the Giallorossi. And also it's looking closer and closer that the Romans have potentially done a deal with Everton about Moise Kean. Moise Kean, of course, not had the best start in English football, but wants to kickstart his career, should we say, at the Stadio Olimpico. So that could be quite an interesting one. Nice moves from Roma there if that goes through. So other than that, the final interesting thing today was just an interview with Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, the ex-Inter player who was there in the mid-80s. He had an interesting interview talking, saying that from his discussions with people at the club, it may look as though Perisic may stay. Obviously, he knows, of course, the situation with Bayern Munich as well, so he was a bit ambiguous about that, saying that potentially he could go back to Inter, but also that Bayern haven't ruled that out. That really means that it looks like he could go on a cut price deal if Inter decide to do it. So that's the papers in a nutshell for today. I'm Richard Hall, as I said before, and we'll be back.